Laura Lopes never had to chase luxury, it followed her. From private jets to designer wardrobes, the daughter of Queen Camilla lived a life that most could only dream of. And she didn't even bother pretending to be humble about it. She wasn't born into royalty, not technically, but once her mother married into the monarchy, Laura soaked up every drop of privilege like it was her birthright. And Camilla? She handed it over with a smile, like spoiling Laura was her way of compensating for everything the world whispered about her behind her back. At a 5-star hotel in Monaco, where chandeliers sparkled like bottled galaxies and jazz musicians played as if the night depended on it, Laura made her grand entrance. A Dior gown clung to her like a second skin, and around her neck hung black Tahitian pearls that shimmered with the kind of elegance money couldn't fake. Her wrist flashed with a diamond-encrusted Patek Philippe, and the wine in her hand hadn't even gone down halfway before a waiter rushed to refill it. She didn't walk, she floated. The whole night, the entire event felt like it had been staged for her. But behind every glinting diamond and every fluted glass of Bordeaux, there was a trail, a money trail. And while Laura reveled in the attention, Catherine, Princess of Wales, was tracking every step. See, Catherine wasn't the type to make scenes or throw around accusations without proof. She was quiet, methodical, a woman who understood that in a palace built on secrets, the real power belonged to those who knew how to read between the numbers. She wasn't just another royal smiling for photos. She was the one who checked the ledgers when no one else bothered. One night, in her dimly lit office, Catherine noticed something. A single large expense tucked inside a pile of event support costs. It was labeled Monaco Event Hospitality, but the number was outrageous. And worse, it didn't align with any official calendar event. She pulled out old records, cross-checked dates, traced press mentions of Laura's lavish appearances, and there it was. Laura flaunting a Cartier necklace one week, followed by a mysterious emergency expense filed days later. Again and again. Lavish trips and luxury items matched up with hidden financial entries. The approval signature? Always Camilla. This wasn't just sloppy bookkeeping, it was deliberate. Royal funds, taxpayer money, had been disguised under charity expenses, diplomatic events, and support costs. Camilla had built a maze of fake events and misused budgets to fund her daughter's lifestyle. And Laura? She lived it up, clueless or uncaring about the scrutiny building outside the palace gates. Back in Monaco, a photographer caught Laura mid-laugh, glass raised, necklace glowing, surrounded by friends dripping in couture. The photo exploded online. Comments poured in, royal freeloading, tax-funded party girl, glamorous leech. At first, Laura didn't care. She liked the attention. She thought she was untouchable, but she didn't realize that Catherine was already connecting the dots. Meanwhile, Camilla began to feel the walls closing in. A trusted advisor rushed in, breathless. Catherine was requesting old financial records, 3 years worth, focused on Laura. Camilla's face went blank, then hard. Her daughter's spending had always been justified in her mind, a way to protect her, a way to make up for the reputation she couldn't erase. But Catherine digging meant danger. Real danger. She summoned Laura immediately. Laura walked in without a hint of guilt, dressed in shimmering silk, that familiar, arrogant smile on her face. But Camilla wasn't in the mood. She told her bluntly, Catherine is coming for the books, and if she finds out the truth, they're both going down. Laura didn't flinch. She just scoffed, poured herself a drink, and said what she'd always believed. You'll protect me, you always have. But this time, Camilla wasn't sure she could. Catherine stood alone at the tall window of her study, the night outside swallowing everything but her reflection in the glass. Her eyes didn't blink. Her hand clutched a single sheet of paper, a bank statement showing a large payment approved by Camilla to an event that never happened. She didn't need speculation anymore. She had proof, and every detail added weight to a growing truth. The monarchy's money was being siphoned for Laura's indulgence, and the queen consort was the enabler. A knock at the door snapped her out of the silence. Her assistant entered, holding a new folder. Inside were documents Catherine had requested from deep archives, reports on charity events, sponsorship deals, and personal expenses linked to Camilla's office. Catherine sat at her desk and opened them with surgical precision. At first glance, the documents looked legitimate, official stamps, signatures, fancy wording, but there were inconsistencies. A Paris-based charity conference? No media coverage, no guest list, no digital footprint. Yet £150,000 sterling, 0 pence, had been approved, transferred straight to an account under the name L. Lopez, and then it got worse. She found a second transfer, £80,000 sterling, 0 pence, marked as sponsorship for an art exhibit, that same exhibit where Laura was photographed flaunting a new diamond necklace. A coincidence? Not likely. Especially when the approval form bore Camilla's elegant, unmistakable signature. Catherine circled both entries in red, her pen carving a clear line between suspicion and confirmation. Later that afternoon, she caught Laura in a hallway outside the royal meeting rooms. Laura was glowing in a bright crimson dress, her steps confident, her eyes full of mock grace. Catherine blocked her path gently, a small smile hiding the fire in her chest. "Laura, do you recall the Paris charity conference? The one in April?" Her voice was calm, almost warm. Laura blinked. "What about it?" "Curious, because I can't seem to find any mention of it anywhere. Not in the press, not in the system, but there's a large expense tied directly to your account." Laura's expression faltered. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked away. "I didn't plan the conference. That was my mother's department. I just showed up." Catherine raised an eyebrow. "And the money?" Laura's voice hardened, but the fear was peeking through. "Camila handled it. I don't deal with numbers." Catherine nodded slowly. "So you're saying she signed off on everything? She had no idea what funds were being used or where they came from." Laura hesitated, then with a shrug, she offered a defiant, "Exactly." Catherine smiled politely. "That's very helpful." By the time Laura stormed off in her heels, face flushed and hands trembling, Catherine knew she had her next move. Laura's denial wasn't just weak, it was reckless. She had pinned it all on her mother, which meant if the story blew up, Camila would carry the blame, and Laura would try to vanish behind silk curtains and media silence. But Catherine wasn't done. She returned to her office, pulled a thin USB from a drawer, and began uploading everything: bank transfers, fake event listings, matching social media photos of Laura's luxury escapades. Her laptop screen lit up with spreadsheet tabs and labeled folders. Each file, each image, was a nail in the coffin of their cover-up. That night, she made a discreet call to a trusted journalist from the Times. She didn't reveal her name, just offered a tip and a teaser of what she had. It involves the palace, millions in misused funds, and it all starts with a daughter who can't stop shopping. She hung up before questions followed. The next royal banquet was days away, and Catherine already knew what she was going to wear, what she was going to say, and exactly when the truth would explode. The ballroom glowed under golden chandeliers, every surface polished to perfection. Nobles and politicians gathered in clusters, their laughter and murmurs bouncing off marble walls as waiters weaved through the crowd with silver trays of champagne. In the center of it all stood Camila, smiling, regal, draped in emerald silk. Laura shimmered beside her, a new diamond bracelet catching the light with every flick of her wrist. But across the room, Catherine stood near the podium, calm, unreadable. Beneath her navy gown, her phone buzzed with updates. The files had been delivered. The news had gone live. Catherine stepped forward, clearing her throat. The orchestra softened. Conversations died out. All eyes turned. She took a breath, lifted her gaze, and spoke. "The crown's strength lies not in its history, but in its honesty. And it's time we face a truth long hidden." A large screen flickered on behind her. First, a chart public fund allocations over the past 2 years. Then a series of expense records, conference budgets, sponsorship approvals, fake charities, each one linked to the same account, L. Lopes, each one signed off by the same name, Camila P. The room gasped. Camilla's glass slipped slightly in her hand. Laura stared at the screen, her smile evaporating. The next slide appeared: photos. Laura in Monaco, Paris, Rome, jewelry, fashion, yachts, timed perfectly with every transaction. Catherine's voice cut through the silence. These funds were not used for official duties. They were funneled to support a personal lifestyle, disguised as charity, approved from within. Camila rose from her seat, voice sharp. "This is outrageous. Lies. That data was stolen, twisted." Catherine didn't flinch. They've already been verified. The media has them, the Times, BBC, The Guardian. The public knows. Phones buzzed around the room. Heads bowed over screens. News alerts popped up, each headline louder than the last. Royal funds misused. Camila under fire. Laura Lopes named in spending cover-up. Camila's face darkened. You planned this. You betrayed the crown. Catherine stepped down from the podium, locking eyes with her. I protected it. Laurel turned pale, her hands trembling. This wasn't me. It was all Mom. I didn't approve anything. Camila whipped around, fury flashing. You ungrateful child. After everything I gave, you told me to shine? Laura snapped. You created this. The room fell into a stunned silence as mother and daughter faced off. The glossy illusion shattered. Guests watched in horror, some already slipping away to avoid the fallout. Later that night, the palace gates swarmed with reporters, headlines blazed from every screen. Camila retreated to her private room, the walls once symbols of power, now echoing with isolation. Laura locked herself away, stripped of her glittering armor, sobbing into designer sheets that now felt more like chains. Catherine sat in her office, her lamp casting a soft light on the final folder she'd used to carry the evidence. Her phone blinked. A message from the Prime Minister's office. Thank you for your integrity. Formal investigation begins tomorrow. Morning came, and the royal household issued a statement. Camila had been stripped of all financial oversight pending investigation. Laura released a shaky apology to the press. Catherine's name trended for hours. The princess who stood alone. Days passed. Protesters gathered at palace gates demanding accountability. Investigators poured through ledgers. Camila was called in for questioning. Laura's appearances vanished completely. Catherine remained silent, dignified, her role not elevated but purified. And in a drawer in her study, a small torn note sat tucked in a velvet box. The one Camila had once scribbled in anger. Catherine will pay. It lay in pieces, forgotten, a ghost of a battle lost. The palace would survive, but its silence had been broken forever.